Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 752 for the 16th of March. We're going to start off with the frontline changes report, and we're going to start off with the Belgorod Front. At the Belgorod Front, there is geolocation of Ukrainian forces finally on the other side of the border. They are inside Russia. However, there is multiple geolocations of them getting hit by FPV drone. They are moving inside the buildings, Russian tank attacking just off the same location, and then the Ukrainian forces running away back to Ukraine. So it is not a capture. It's more like no presence. So there will be an overlapping border from now on. So this is the frontline changes at Kozinka in the Belgorod Front, and we move on to the Avdiivka Front. There is multiple frontline changes over Avdiivka Front, over here, and here. So over at Novokalinove, there is geolocation of Ukrainian forces attacking south of Novokalinove. They're attacking down, and however, this is not a capture. This is just Ukrainian presence because we have no idea what is the conclusion of this attack. So but definitely we will extend the Ukrainian front line down south to this position, and just nearby over at this location over here, this is, I will consider this more like Novokalinove. Russian used the thermobaric missiles or rockets at the Ukrainian positions over here. So this actually invalidates the Russian claims that the Russians are in this position. So this is actually more like corroborating the Ukrainian position. The Ukrainian mapping is actually more correct than the Russian ones. So again, we will actually backtrack the Russian mapping around this area here. And over at Bedaichi, the Russian forces have captured more grounds in Bedaichi. Finally, it seems like the Ukrainian counterattack over at Avdiivka has run its course. The Russians are back on the initiative over at Bedaichi, securing the most of the eastern part of Bedaichi and the southern part of Bedaichi. So this is based on Ukrainian mapping. So this is not Russian propaganda. This is Ukrainian anti-propaganda. So the Ukrainian forces continue to hold positions at Bedaichi, particularly have reserve positions in the rear as per seen in video footages. So we will continue to monitor how this progress. And further south from Bedaichi, we have frontline change over at Avdiivka. Just some slight change with the Russian forces expanding their control, at least based on the Ukrainian mapping. For the Russian mapping, Russians claim the entire of Avdiivka. Is this Avdiivka? Correct, Avdiivka. So it's just a reduction of the Ukrainian claims over at the Avdiivka region. But I think the Ukrainian claims are probably more accurate. And over down south at Tonenke, the Russian forces have expanded their control. As per mentioned yesterday, they attacked in the southwest, and I mentioned about the possibility of the Russians attacking in the north, and they indeed have attacked in the north, extending control, making it more difficult for the Ukrainians to withdraw from Tonenke, as well as this building region here out of harm's way. So the front line change is over in the northern part of the Tonenke, and looks like if the Ukrainians are unable to force the Russian back, then I think the Russians won't be too long to capturing the rest of the northern part of Tonenke. So that's all for the frontline changes reports. Over at the strategy and tactical reporting front, over at the Kherson Front, there is still fighting along the Dnipro River's beachhead or bridgehead of the Ukrainian side. I'm not sure where exactly the fighting is referring to, as usual. So that's all from the Kherson Front. Over in the Zaporizhzhia Front, at the Zaporizhzhia Front, the fighting mainly is over in this Orikhiv sector. At the Orikhiv salient, the Russian forces have launched an attack at Robotine in the northwest of Verbove, as well as in the region of Novoporovska. There is geolocation of Russian airstrike in this northwestern part of Verbove frontline regions. So the Russians are still trying to push, but the progress here is super slow. So no, don't expect much things around here. I don't think there will be any massive breakthrough anytime soon. That's all from the Zaporizhzhia Front. We move into the Donetsk Front. So at the Donetsk Front, this is the Donetsk Front and the Velika Novosilka sector, Voleda sector, and Marinka sector. So the Russian forces are attacking at Rivnopil, over at Uruzhaine. The Ukrainians counterattack at Volodymyrivka, Russians attacking at Novomikhailivka, attacking towards Konstantinivka. They are attacking also at Georgievka as well as Krasnohorivka. So this is the just strategic situation over at these front lines. I think the Russians are making some pressure. They're putting a lot more pressure around Velika Novosilka sector, trying to draw Ukrainian forces away from the Marinka sector. Although I don't think the Ukrainians will fall for this. That's why they are also doing their own diversionary over at Volodymyrivka, trying to draw the Russians to Volodymyrivka instead of focusing on this attack over in this flanks region. No, but it's going to be quite rather pointless. I think everybody knows the main push is over in this Marinka sector. And over at the Marinka sector, particularly at Novomikhailivka, the fighting currently is in the southern part as well as in the western part of Novomikhailivka. The Russians are attacking in two different directions. So with the main push over here and another pressure point over in the western part of Novomikhailivka. So this is based on the information coming from Ryba, the pro-Russian source. We will continue to see how this progress. Both defense ministries mentioned about the fighting at Novomikhailivka, so definitely the fighting here is quite legitimate. We will continue to monitor and see how this progress. The fighting towards Konstantinivka, can take it with a pinch of salt because of the way how it was written. I have to put it as fighting because Konstantinivka was actually mentioned. But the Russians simply said that they inflicted losses on the Ukrainian forces near Konstantinivka. So we will continue to monitor. It may or may not be a push in this direction or probably down south from Pobeda, but we will continue to wait and see how this develops. There's no more news regarding Krasnohorivka as well as Georgievka. We will continue to wait for more information regarding these front lines. So that's all for the Donetsk Front. Over at the Avdiivka Front, Ukrainians are still trying to counterattack. The Ukrainian attack is reported at Semenivka, Tonenke, as well as Novokalinove. However, the Russians are also attacking at Novokalinove, Bedaichi, Semenivka, Olivka, Tonenke, Pervomaisky, and Nevelsky. And you can see based on this, if you have been following the DPA SITREP on a daily basis, you'll probably find that this looks rather different from the past few SITREPs because the Ukrainians counteroffensive is running its course. They are exhausting themselves. The Russians are back on the initiative. So we will continue to monitor. Some of these frontline changes particularly shows the weakening of the Ukrainian lines, with the Russians taking back more positions within Bedaichi. They are pushing at Olivka as well as pushing out in the northern part of Tonenke, increasing the salient, or rather the enclave that is actually getting encircled at Tonenke. So the lines might be breaking again, but don't expect too big of a change because the Ukrainians have reinforced this area rather tremendously. So according to the Russian side, if you want to believe them, the manpower currently is currently on the Ukrainians' advantage. So we will continue to see how this progress. However, this manpower advantage is going to wear out very quickly because the Russian side actually have the artillery and air force advantage. So it will even out, and the one with more firepower will tend to win. Over at this northern part of this Avdiivka front is interesting. The Ukrainians are attacking over at Novokalinove, and the Russians are trying to grind them out with the counterattack as well as a TOS-1A attack over near along this railway line front line. So we will continue to monitor, which with this attack also means that this three line control by the Russians are unlikely to be accurate because the Ukrainians actually punch this far down south along to the railway line. I think the front line is actually along the railway line. So that's all for the Avdiivka front. We move on over at the New York. There's nothing over at New York front. We move into the Bakhmut front, and at the Bakhmut Front, there is fighting reported over at Klishevka, over at Ivanivsky, as well as in the eastern part of Chasiv. So that's about it. There is no real change around this area here. There is a lot of geolocation of Russian airstrikes and drone strikes all around Chasiv, trying to weaken the line here. It makes it seems like the Russians really want to make this push into Chasiv, but we shall wait and see. I still think that it's not a good idea to attack Chasiv. So that's all for the Bakhmut Front. Over at the Siversk Front, the fighting currently is only reported at Belgorod. The fighting here is reported on both sides. Ukrainian Defense Ministry mentioned the Russians are attacking, whereas the Russians are also reporting that Ukrainians are counter-attacking. So the Russians are attacking, the Ukrainians are counter-attacking. So that's all for the Belgorod and the Siversk Front. At the Kreminna Front, there is no more fighting being reported here. Our usual suspect at Terny and Yapolivka is not reported, so we will wait and see. The front line has become rather stale over here. Over at the Svatove Front, we have interesting reports of fighting reported in Nadia. So the Russians reportedly attacking Nadia. Nadia is actually where there was once upon a time a breakthrough by the Russians at Ryhorovka region, Serhievka region, and the farthest point that they reached was actually Nadia. So we actually see a fighting here right now. The last time that there was fighting reported in this region was in November last year. So that was like 3-4 months ago. So it was a long time since we have seen any Russian attack at Nadia. So it was quite some time. We will continue to monitor. I believe this is just a probing attack. I don't think this is an offensive. So that's all for the Svatove Front. Over at the Kupyansk Front. So this is Kupyansk city. At the Kupyansk Front, there is fighting reported at Kotlyarivka as well as Berestove. The Ukrainians are counter-attacking over at Sinkivka. So this is the general picture of the situation around here. I don't think there's much to talk about. Very still over here, and that's all from the Kupyansk Front. Moving into the Belgorod Front. So at the Belgorod Front, there is fighting still happening over in the Grevoron sector, with fighting reported at Kozinka, at Kozinka, as well as at Popivka region and Spodero-Shino region. However, just to qualify, Popivka and Spodero-Shino, these are actually more like the Ukrainians attempted to attack and then they were actually stopped by Russian fire. So according to information from the Russian Defense Ministry, they said that the attacks and attempts to enter the recon forces by the Ukrainian forces into Russian territory has been foiled. This could mean a lot of things. It could mean artillery striking, drone strikes, artillery strike, air strikes, or whatever to prevent them to attack. There might actually be no contact between the two infantries, two sides. So this is what happening. And fighting at Kozinka is interesting because we have more footages coming out from this region here. So apparently the Ukrainians actually make full use of the forest region along this border region near the Koshkai River. Voshkla. Oh my god, how to pronounce that? Voshkla River. So the Ukrainian forces used the forest cover and try to enter into the village, and it was successful. They managed to enter into the village, and they were geolocated within some of the buildings. However, immediately they got into artillery strikes, mortar strikes, drone strikes, and the Russian tank also entered into the front line. So, and the fighting have been too fierce for the Ukrainian forces, and they actually withdrew, and even their withdrawal was actually hit by mortars. So even the withdrawal wasn't very pleasing, and the drone strike actually pinned down the Ukrainian forces. So the situation, this attack just went south very, very quickly, and the fact that the penetration wasn't much is merely at most I would give them 500 meters at most. And it's actually not even that. Based on the geolocation from the border region, it's merely 200 meters. So 200 meters isn't really much. No, I mean, we can run 200 meters in like what, 1 minute or 1 minute plus or less. So the fact that they didn't really go that far probably is very disappointing for the pro-Ukrainian side. And so that's about it. So that's it. This further up north over at the Sumy region, and that's something interesting happened after the failure of Ukrainian Techno. Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported Russian forces actually tried to enter Ukrainian territory. So one report is reported at Brusky, the other one is reported as Stara Huta. So after the Ukrainians try to enter and infiltrate into Russian territory, now the Russians are paying back with the same thing over at Brusky and what is this place called again? Stara Huta. So these are the two attacks being repelled allegedly. So if you look at the border region, Ukrainian forces attacking at the Grivoron region, Russians attacking at Brusky as well as Stara Huta. So we will continue to monitor and see if this end up becoming some kind of a offensive for the Russians with a push into the Sumy region. My understanding that the Ukrainians have actually developed some kind of a similar thing to a Surovikin line, but we're not sure. I haven't monitored exactly where this defense line is, mainly because I don't think the Russians are going to penetrate through into the front, into the Ukraine, and reopen the northern front just yet. I think the time is not right yet. We are still too early. So since we are here, might as well just talk about just add some conclusions into this. But before I continue, do press the like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed. I know 60 minutes in, I think this is a bit difficult for. I think most people might have not continued to watch, but for those that are watching and you're not subscribed, do subscribe, because if you are watched to this point, I think you're really okay with the reporting. So do press the subscribe button, support the channel, and so I want to talk about why I say that the Russians are unlikely to reopen the northern front just yet, because as per many of the pro-Russian side, or maybe they heard me saying this and or maybe they might have come up with this conclusion themselves, is that the Russians' strategic objective in the special military operation is not to capture ground, at least not in the beginning. I mean, not in the midterms. In the beginning, yes, that's why they captured the Luhansk, Donetsk region, in the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia region. This is true, but the real objective is the militarization, and there is no need to attack the north, because by focusing on this eastern front, particularly over in the Donetsk Luhansk region, they are stretching Ukrainian front line across the entire country, and this distance is really huge. We are talking about over 1,000 kilometers of logistic, and probably more, because logistic don't go in a straight line. So this stretches the Ukrainians' ability to conduct war, because a lot of resources will have to be spent on logistic. Not just that, having more territory means more people to feed, more towns and villages to monitor, to have checkpoints, have guards, more administration costs, more pensions that have to be paid. So Russia is playing a very deep game. When it comes to this special military operation, they want to stretch the resources of the Ukrainians to minimize the need for fighting and minimize the number of deaths on the Russian side, whilst at the same time grinding out the Ukrainians' ability to conduct war. So this is the reason why starting a northern front may not be meaningful, and it may also be more expensive in terms of Russian casualty counts. There's no need for that at this moment, and it's better to just hold a defensive position. And like what happened in the Belgorod offensive, the Ukrainians basically hit a wall, and the main thing is because they attacked very late. The Russian military today is totally different from the Russian military a year ago. If you look at the Russian military a year ago, the Russian forces have just mobilized not too long ago, around November, December in 2022, they just mobilized. So by February, March 2023, the Russian forces, many of them are still without sufficient refresher training. So because even you have training before going back to battle, facing a totally new military situation, the new technology, new doctrines, is not sufficient. No, 2-3 months is actually not enough for this kind of training. Not to mention Ukrainians are one month or 2 weeks training. That's utterly not enough. So the situation for the Russian side at those moments is just insufficient. It is also during the mobilization part, and of course, for the Russian government to review if they actually have the money. So what is the effect of the sanctions? They actually know it by the end of the year in 2022. By the end of 2022, they realized that the sanction had failed. Because the reality is that the Russian side prepared for the sanctions. They spent 7-8 years preparing for it. They know a sanction will come, and they know that this war is going to come. It's not unavoidable, but they have to prepare for it. And even if they are prepared for it, they are not sure how it will actually play out. So they actually waited to the end of the year to realize, the sanction have failed. Russia basically can survive the sanction regimes, and that's when they start to spend all the money that they profited in 2022. So they actually earn a lot of money because the oil price shot up because of the sanctions, and with all this extra money, they reinvested into the military, of buying new weapons, buying new ammunition, and whatnot, all this investment, as well as expanding the Russian military by almost another 50%. So, and this investment takes time to play out. And it took the entire year of 2023 to play out. And so by the time where the Ukrainian counteroffensive draws more or less to the end, the Russian forces, by that point, around half a year to 8 months in, they have started to receive a lot of new equipment, a lot of ammunition, and on top of that, the Russians probably also made some trade deals with North Korea. Since the West have not wanted to play ball, there is no more reasons for the Russian side to apply sanctions on North Korea. So they started to trade with North Korea, solve their space program problems, ballistic missile problems, and in exchange, they are trading probably grains for ammo. And this is also why we started to see the return of the Grad rockets on the Russian side. We see more weaponries. The military production have ramped up over the past 1 year, and now they are at multiple times of what both Europe and US combined. The production value is actually a lot higher. The speed of production and the volume of production on the Russian side is now 2 to 3 times, at minimum 2 to 3 times more than the European and Americans combined. So when the Ukrainians do the Belgorod offensive right now, it just fails. They should have done the offensive at Belgorod with the aim of capturing Belgorod with the full counteroffensive force of 12 brigades directly at Belgorod. That would be the perfect time. Capturing a major city, especially it's a capital city of an oblast, would send shockwave across the entire of Russia, and that would also allow the Ukrainians to have some kind of a bargaining chip when they come to peace negotiation. For example, they can trade Belgorod for some grounds, some land, something, or if not, then the Ukrainians can continue to wage war, focus all their offensive actions within the Russian territory. There is no need to fight within the Ukrainian side. They just need to hold the line and focus on the Russian territory, because if you fight in Ukrainian land, you're destroying Ukrainian property. You're destroying Ukrainian land. You fight in Russian territory, you destroy Russian land. So that makes more sense. However, of course, Ukraine is it does not really have full control of their own destiny. So it is what it is. And another part is there's a lot of talk about the possibility of NATO troops, particularly French troops, Baltic troops, maybe Polish troops entering into Ukraine. Tentatively, I don't think that will happen. They are just exploring and poking and probing to see how Russia will react. But I don't think that will happen, because if that will happen, as I mentioned before, they will become priority targets. And also risk starting a major war, because Russia, in the wrong set of mind, maybe that day, ate something wrong, and then he have a bad stomach ache, and then he's in a bad mood and he declares war on France. We do not know, then that will be disastrous. And because in a state of war doesn't mean that they have to start attacking each other. They will just be starting to attack each other's commercial interests. It could be Russia started to send weaponry into Houthi territories, and this time around they have to fight. They will start to sink French ships, or using Russian weapons. Now who knows? It can be all sorts of things. So you will just generate and degrade into a wider regional war, or eventually become a world war. So I doubt. I have serious doubt that they want to test Putin and test Russia again, to see whether who is the chicken, or to try to call out Putin's potential bluff. But I don't think Putin is bluffing, because if Russia don't fight the war now, they will fight the war later. So now they have the advantage. They should take advantage. Just like I mentioned about the Belgorod offensive, the Ukrainians did not take the advantage when they have the means and to hit where is softer. They decided to hit where is the hardest, and they just get destroyed. So it is what it is. So thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next update.